Hi everyone, welcome to round 18 of Nuremberg 1896. Fittingly, this is the final game that we are going to analyze from this tournament, and it's between Lasker and Tarrasch. Now, as I mentioned, Tarrasch wrote a book on this tournament, and in the end of the book, he included a luck meter that kind of just demonstrated how lucky Lasker got in multiple games and how he won 5 games that he should have lost. And that's what makes this game a little ironic, because at no point in this game does Lasker get slightly lucky. In fact, he completely wipes the board with Tarrasch, and it shows that he does outclass him when you look at this game. I mean, not that one game can prove anything like that, but in my opinion, this was it was a telling victory, let's just say. So he plays some very simple position, just kind of a Ruy Lopez exchange, and doesn't really go for much in terms of opening advantage. Very similar to Carlsen, which is a lot of people compare Lasker to Carlsen. Queen to d2, and if you look at the position, it looks totally equal. They both have some isolated, they both have doubled pawns. It's basically most of the pieces are getting traded off. White plays queen to e3 here. Now, first, what do you think black should play in this position? It's an important question. I have my opinions. I don't love what Tarrasch did. He played the move queen takes e3. I think something like keeping the queens on the board would make more sense, because when you took an e3, this pawn comes to e3 and controls some really key central squares. And now black still has the f4 square. Logical would be something like knight e2 to try to play f4. And then after you go f4, well, at least you have these weak pawns to perhaps play against. Although black could do something like queen f6 here to stop f4. And it looks like a very reasonable position for black. But okay, in the game he played queen takes e3. White took an e3, and I thought this was a minor victory because now we're controlling the center a little bit more. Knight to e2 was played, perhaps some ideas of f4. Rook to g1, pinning the knight to the g7 pawn, but black stops that. Rook to f1 with ideas of f4. Knight to g3. And now f4 was played. And f4 is a tricky little move. It doesn't look like it has any real threat, because if pawn takes, simply rook takes. And so black played simply the move c5. And now I would like you to pause your video and figure out what move you would play here for white. Okay, this is a very key moment. In fact, c5 was a tremendous blunder. White has virtually a winning move here. Knight to h5. Now clearly, if knight e6, we can play the move f5. And if knight to g5, h4, and then we're going to take on g7 next move. So black was definitely banking on the move g6. And if you didn't see it already, what can white do against g6? Pause your video and try to figure it out. And if you've done that and you saw f takes e5, then that is exactly what happened in the game. And the point is, if rook takes if pawn takes knight, takes on f6, and checkmate. So it's that simple. Knight h5 just wins a pawn. There's no way to defend the g7 pawn. And after this, black simply took on e5. And after knight takes, white's just up a pawn with a really strong position. I'll show you how the rest of the game went real quick, but it was pretty ugly. h4 stops any counterplay with g5. And this move doesn't help at all, because after, well, you can, if you want to pause your video and try to figure out what you could do, this could be a moment, although it's not super complicated. Because after e5, the rook has only one square to go, and then we just take, and he could have taken on h5, but I think he was concerned about knight g6 attacking both pawns. So he did the cool thing where he just defends it first. Now, if knight g6, he can just trade, and he's up a pawn and a king and pawn endgame, a connected pass pawn. It's totally over. And on any other move, we just take on h5 next. So he just He didn't take it too, although he could have, but he wants to wait because black can go knight to g6 as soon as he takes on h5. So he's just waiting to the last moment. And look, it's just totally overwhelming. Notice he plays the sadistic move b4, which is not really necessary, and now the game is over, and black resigned. So even though he could have taken on h5, he never really had to. He just used the knight on f4 to restrict this knight on f8. And it's just a very smooth performance from Lasker. He just played some kind of normal random moves in the opening. Didn't really get too much, but just waited for one mistake from his opponent, immediately pounced, and completely destroyed him from there after finding that one tactic. So this is a game that did not go in the luck meter section of the book. And Lasker ended up winning this tournament despite losing the final round to a guy named Sharuzek. I'm going to check right now what the final result in this tournament was. I forget how much he won it by. But he won by... Why isn't he even telling me? What the heck is that? He won by a whole point. Maroczy had 12.5 out of 18. Lasker had 13.5 out of 18. Pillsbury and Tarrasch both had 12. So it's kind of funny. In any case, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tournament and some of these games. They made quite an impression on me. And join us tomorrow where we start a new chess tournament, chess match. I'll figure out which. I haven't even figured out which one it is yet, but I'm going to take a look, and I'm sure it'll be a good one. See you guys later. Bye-bye.